Chosen one, what if I told you a prophet warned about today's exact moment? 35 years ago, and most people still haven't listened? You've sensed the world tilting on a fault line of pride, watched societies fracture under the weight of arrogance, and felt the urgency of something greater pressing on your spirit. You thought your unease was personal, but it's a divine alarm echoing through history. Hidden truths from decades past are now unfolding in plain sight. Warnings about pride, enmity, humility, and the return of Christ that were whispered in hushed conference halls, but carried a power meant for this generation. Tonight, you'll uncover how those ancient pronouncements speak to your soul's mission, why heaven is moving in ways you must not ignore, and how you can align with the prophetic stream rising around you. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Stay close, because every second you hesitate could cost more than you realize. The poison of pride. They've told you pride was harmless, that a little confidence could never hurt anyone. Yet you sense a darker truth lurking beneath every boast, every unexamined ego trip. You felt it in your chest when someone brags of their achievements, a tightening of your heart as their self-importance colors the room. You've whispered silent prayers in your car, driving away from arguments where words flew as shields for fragile egos. You feel the sting when your own pride slips out in defensiveness or the unwillingness to admit a mistake. It isolates you, leaving you craving authentic connection, but fearful that your own arrogance will push others away. You are not alone in this struggle. Many of the chosen ones, those attuned to deeper currents of spirit, feel the pull of pride as a toxin that seeps into relationships, communities, and nations. Yet, within this discomfort lies the doorway to a profound awakening. The poison of pride can be identified, confronted, and cured. In your own journey, you've wrestled with moments when you celebrated your wisdom a bit too readily or looked down on others from the perch of your achievements. You remember writing off a friend's suggestion because you believed you already had the answer. You recall the rush of self-satisfaction when your strategy outperformed everyone else's in a group project. At home, you've lectured loved ones on their shortcomings, convinced that you were acting out of kindness rather than ego. And in the mirror of your soul, you saw not confidence, but a brittle shield masking fear of inadequacy. Those episodes carry an emotional weight. Shame that you hurt others, regret at missed opportunities for true empathy, and the gnawing realization that pride corrodes the very connections you long to nurture. It's that tension, wanting to be both godly and humble, yet finding yourself drawn toward self-exaltation, that makes pride such an insidious adversary. Yet these trials are not without purpose. They form the crucible of your spiritual preparation. In the lesser-known words of Nahum 1 verse 3 it is written, "The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and the Lord will by no means clear the guilty." This declaration reminds you that pride does not escape divine scrutiny, and every act of arrogance is noted in heaven's ledger. Far from condemning you to shame, these warnings guide you toward humility, carving away the illusions of self-sufficiency so that you can learn to rely on divine strength. Each confrontation with your own pride is an invitation to surrender control, to exchange your brittle confidence for a sturdier faith. This pivotal moment, when you realize pride is not merely a misstep, but a barrier to divine intimacy, is the turning point where healing begins. If you look closely at your life, you'll see signs of transformation bravely taking root. You notice that when you catch yourself in a prideful thought, a gentle voice within urges you to pause and repent. Social media, once a stage for self-promotion, now feels like a test. Does your heart race at the thought of likes, or quiet at the prospect of genuine connection? You find yourself drawn to stories of unsung heroes, individuals who serve without applause, as though your spirit hungers for a model of humility. Even your prayers have shifted. Rather than reciting petitions of achievement, you whisper prayers of gratitude for unseen blessings. These subtle shifts are the visible evidence of divine timing, aligning your heart with the frequency of humility, drawing you away from pride's discordant melody. Behind these shifts, unseen forces are at work, clearing the path for your elevation. Your struggles with ego were never an exercise in divine wrath, but a calibration of your soul's compass, guiding you toward a north of greater authenticity. In the often overlooked prophecy of Zechariah 10 verse 6, it assures, "And I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph," revealing that divine elevation flows through the refining of character before the bestowal of blessing. Every time your pride was humbled, you invited heavenly architects to reconstruct your heart with foundations of pure stone rather than fragile clay. Synchronicities emerge. A kindly word from a stranger just when you need encouragement to let go of self-reliance. A moment of clarity in prayer, revealing the grace that undergirds every victory. These interventions confirm that your letting go of pride is not a test, but a signal. Your heart is being prepared for a purpose greater than you ever imagined. At this sacred juncture, you may feel the tremor of hesitation, the instinct to cling to self-importance, because it feels like security. Many resist the full surrender of their pride, fearing that humility equates to weakness, that lowering their guard leaves them vulnerable to exploitation. Yet true alignment demands more than awareness of pride's poison. It calls for the courage to remove the shields and expose your raw humanity to God's refining light. Imagine standing at the edge of a pool of living water, its surface shimmering with a promise of renewal. Will you step in and let the waters wash away every trace of arrogance? Or will you linger at the shore, fearful of change? When you choose to step into humility, empowerment floods your soul like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Feel the release as you let go of the need to prove yourself, opening space for genuine confidence rooted in divine acceptance. Speak words that reflect this new posture. Admit mistakes freely, praise others' strengths sincerely, and offer help without expecting reward. Ground yourself in daily practices that reinforce humility. Begin each morning acknowledging your dependence on God's wisdom. Pause throughout the day to pray for a heart of service, and end each evening by listing moments where you saw pride's grip loosen. These rituals not only fortify your resolve, but invite others to join you on this path of true greatness. As this reflection reaches its close, carry this revelation deep within. Pride is the universal poison that corrupts every relationship, every decision, and every society. But humility is the antidote that restores unity, creativity, and divine purpose. Your willingness to confront and relinquish arrogance transforms you into a beacon of authentic leadership, a chosen one whose power is not in self-exaltation but in faithful service. Watch as the illusions of self-sufficiency crumble beneath the weight of your surrendered heart, revealing the destiny for which you were truly designed. The spiritual dangers of enmity. They told you that conflict was inevitable, that disagreements merely test the strength of bonds. Yet you felt a deeper sting when those you trusted turned their faces cold, when conversations warped into battlegrounds, and when the warmth of fellowship froze into the chill of silent judgment. In these moments, you sense something darker than mere misunderstanding, a spiritual poison that seeps into hearts, hardening them against compassion. You may have found yourself caught between siblings who warred over beliefs, or church members divided by differing interpretations. You've witnessed friendships fracture over political loyalties, even families torn apart by clashing convictions. This is an ordinary conflict. It's enmity born of pride, a rebellion not against each other alone, but against the divine harmony intended for all creation. You are not alone in this pain. Countless chosen ones have felt the corrosive bite of enmity, And today you'll uncover how this ancient venom operates, why it threatens your walk with God, and the one remedy capable of healing these deadly divides. The wounds of enmity cut deeper than words. You remember the ache in your chest when a loved one refused to listen, eyes narrowing as if your perspective threatened their very identity. You recall the gut punch of betrayal when colleagues banded together to undermine your character, leaving you to pick up the fragments of a reputation once whole. You faced the internal turmoil of wanting to fight back, to defend yourself with equal force, only to awaken in the quiet hours haunted by guilt and regret. Those moments left you questioning whether spiritual life is anything more than a series of power struggles disguised as morality. The weight of carrying resentment felt like shackles, binding you to bitterness rather than free to embody compassion. Yet in that heaviness lies the seed of revelation. Enmity is not an external conflict to be won, but an internal disease to be uprooted. This spiritual disease of enmity has been woven into the human story from its earliest chapters, not as chaos without cause, but as a consequence of pride's unchecked expansion. In the lesser-known account of Alma 4:6, it warns, "In their pride they were lifted up even to the persecution of holy men of God," showing that when souls exalt themselves, they inevitably turn against the vessels of divine truth. Think of Cain's envy twisting into murder, an extreme but stark reminder that enmity always targets purity and prophetic voices. Your own struggles mirror these ancient battles. When you dared to live by higher principles, you felt the heat of opposition, as though the very skies conspired to obscure your light. This turning point, recognizing enmity as the fruit of pride, frames your anguish not as random injustice, but as part of a divine curriculum, preparing you to cultivate a grace that transcends hostility. Even now, signs of transformation begin to flicker in the landscape of your relationships. Perhaps you've noticed that conflicts which once erupted into bitterness now pause at the edge of a long silence, giving space for empathy to surface. You might find that after a tense disagreement, you instinctively offer a gesture of kindness, a coffee, an apology, a moment of listening. Where once pride demanded victory, in communities, the walls of division crack as humble hearts reach across ideological trenches to share a meal or a prayer. You may even observe that within your own mind, the impulse to retaliate softens, replaced by a willingness to seek understanding. These visible and invisible shifts are not mere coincidence, but markers of divine timing, aligning your spirit with the currents of reconciliation and healing. Behind these breakthroughs, powerful spiritual forces are clearing the path for restoration. Your endurance through the corrosive fires of enmity was never a solitary test, but an activation code calling forth heavenly architects. In the obscure promise of Isaiah 57 verse 19, it declares, "Peace, peace to him who is far off and to him who is near," reminding you that divine reconciliation extends across every chasm. Every time you resisted the urge to escalate conflict, every moment you chose compassion over condemnation, you signaled to these spiritual builders that you were ready to participate in the construction of peace. Now, synchronicities appear, an unexpected message that heals a wounded friendship, a mediator introduced at just the right moment, or a shared testimony that dissolves long-held resentment. These interventions confirm that your struggles were not in vain, but the setup for your elevation as a peacemaker. At this sacred juncture, you may feel the familiar tremor of hesitation, the fear that embracing reconciliation means tolerating wrongdoing or losing your own integrity. Many resist the call to release enmity, believing it requires surrendering justice or condoning sin. Yet true alignment demands not the erasure of accountability, but the healing of hearts. Imagine standing on a battlefield strewn with broken shields and fallen swords, and being offered a simple hand to rise above the carnage? Will you grasp it, trusting that higher justice can coexist with mercy, or will you cling to your weapon of resentment, bound to repeat the cycle of conflict? When you choose to step into reconciliation, empowerment surges through every fiber of your being. Feel the liberation of releasing grudges, the lightness of heart that allows you to breathe deeply once more. Speak words that heal, acknowledge hurts with empathy, extend forgiveness where none was deserved, and stand firm in truth without wielding it as a weapon. Anchor this new posture in daily rituals. Begin each day by offering a silent prayer of peace for those you struggle with. Journal the moments when compassion overrode anger, and close each evening by reflecting on blessings received even through conflict. Each deliberate act fortifies your resolve and signals to the world that enmity will no longer define your interactions. As this exploration draws to a close, carry this revelation deep within. The spiritual dangers of enmity are real, but so too is the power of reconciliation born of humility. You have felt the burn of hostility both given and received, yet you stand now at the threshold of transformation. Your willingness to confront pride's offspring, enmity, and to embrace the divine remedy, humility, unites every thread of your journey into a tapestry of peace. Comment enmity if you recognize the need to break these chains and are ready to become a vessel of heavenly reconciliation. The bridges you build today will echo into eternity, guiding souls across the divides that once seemed insurmountable. Mid-video CTA, and to every soul who supported with a super thanks, thank you. You are keeping this light alive for others who haven't found it yet. If you feel called to help this mission reach more chosen ones, tap the super thanks button below. Your energy supports these messages and helps them travel further. Your voice matters, your belief matters, and your light is felt here. Humility, the only cure. You've chased every quick fix, charismatic speakers, motivational mantras, rituals promising instant transformation, only to find your spirit still gasping for true relief. In moments of deep despair, you cried out for healing, only to be met with empty platitudes or half-hearted prayers that skirted the heart of the matter. You felt the frustration of trying to patch brokenness with self-help formulas, of turning your gaze inward in search of strength, only to discover that prideful self-reliance left you more exhausted than before. Know this: you are not alone in this spiritual wilderness. Many chosen ones have wandered through arid lands of self-sufficiency, thirsting for a living water that eluded them. Yet there is a cure more ancient and profound than any human remedy: humility, the cornerstone of lasting restoration. Soon, you'll discover how laying down your ego before heaven's throne ushers in a healing so deep it transforms every facet of your life. The struggle with pride often masquerades as confidence, making it nearly invisible until its consequences roar to life. You've seen it in relationships where your insistence on being right built walls rather than bridges. You recall the heartbreak of offering your help only when it suited your convenience, as though humility were a commodity you could ration. You remember battles fought in the privacy of your mind, arguments with God over why you deserved more credit, why others should recognize your achievements. Each victory in these mental skirmishes left you hollow, echoing with the realization that self-exaltation had become your idol. That inner turmoil carried an emotional weight: guilt over misplaced priorities, shame at the distance pride drove between you and those you loved, and a lingering emptiness that no accolade could fill. Yet within that emptiness lies the calling to true greatness, waiting to be unlocked by a single act of surrender. This confrontation with pride was never a random hardship, but a divine invitation to embrace your true dependence on heaven. In the lesser-known verse of 1 Samuel 2 verse 7, it declares, "The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts." revealing that all elevation flows through God's hands, not your own efforts. That humbling truth reframes every setback as part of your preparation, each closed door a sign pointing you away from self-reliance and toward divine partnership. When you bow your ego at the feet of heaven, you step off the treadmill of proving yourself and step into the flow of mercy that carries you beyond your own strength. This sacred moment, when you admit your weakness, becomes the turning point where humility begins its work, inviting divine power to mend the fractures pride inflicted. As you turn this corner, watch for signs of transformation blossoming in your life. You may notice a sudden comfort in vulnerability, a willingness to share your struggles with trusted friends, feeling understood rather than judged. Tasks that once felt like burdens now carry a lightness, as service becomes a joy instead of a checkbox on your to-do list. You might catch yourself pausing before speaking, choosing words that uplift rather than assert dominance. Even in prayer, the words shift from lists of demands to quiet confession and open listening. These visible and invisible shifts are no coincidence, but signals of divine timing. Your heart's posture of humility is drawing heavenly grace into every corner of your existence. Behind these changes, powerful spiritual currents are aligning to elevate you. Your struggle with pride summoned divine architects ready to rebuild your character. In the obscure prophecy of Zephaniah 2 verse 3 it urges, "Seek the Lord, all you humble of the land, you who do his just commands. Seek righteousness. Seek humility. Perhaps you may be hidden on the day of the anger of the Lord," reminding you that humility is your refuge and protection. Each moment you resisted pride's pull, you activated this promise, drawing divine shelter around your soul. Synchronicities appear, a kind word from a mentor just when you needed assurance that surrender pays dividends, opportunities to serve emerging where you least expected them, and revelations in Scripture that pierce your heart with perfect timing. These interventions affirm that your humility is not a sign of defeat, but the launch pad for your greatest elevation. At this sacred threshold, you might feel the familiar tremor of hesitation, the fear that embracing humility means losing your identity or your voice. Many resist full surrender, convinced that self-abasement invites exploitation or obscurity. Yet true alignment demands not the erasure of your selfhood, but its transcendence. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean, the waves calling you to dive into depths of unimaginable treasure. Will you linger on the shore, clinging to dry sand, or will you plunge in, trusting the currents to guide you to gems hidden beneath the surface? When you choose to dive into humility, empowerment floods your spirit like sunlight breaking dawn. Feel the freedom that comes when the need for approval dissolves, replaced by a confidence rooted in divine acceptance. Speak with gentle authority, knowing your worth is secured by heaven, not by human applause. Anchor this new reality in daily practices. Begin each morning with a prayer of surrender, acknowledging your need for divine guidance. Pause midday to offer gratitude for small mercies, and end each evening by reflecting on ways humility shaped your interactions. These rituals build an unshakable rhythm, rooting you in the soil of grace rather than the shifting sands of pride. As this reflection draws to a close, carry this revelation deep in your heart. Humility is not a weakness, but the wellspring of every true victory. It invites divine strength where your own power falters, washes away the rot of pride, and prepares you for a purpose beyond your imagination. Your willingness to bow before heaven's throne becomes the catalyst for restoration in your own life and in the lives of those you touch. Come and humble if you're ready to drink from this well of grace, and watch as your surrendered heart becomes the foundation upon which lasting transformation is built. Warning signs of the times. You felt the unease building around you, a sense that the foundation beneath your feet is shifting in ways you can't ignore. Each morning brings fresh reports of political turmoil, a new scandal that erodes your faith in leaders, or a headline proclaiming another moral collapse. You wake with a heaviness in your chest, worried that the world you once knew is fracturing, and you wonder how much longer your heart can bear the tension of constant crisis. This isn't mere pessimism. It's an alarm bell ringing in the soul of every chosen one who senses the spiritual drought overtaking every corner of society. Know that you are not alone in this distress. Tonight, you'll discover how prophetic warnings from decades ago map directly onto today's reality, reveal the hidden patterns repeating through history, and illuminate the urgent call to awaken before the final curtain falls. In the midst of this global whirlwind, confusion often clouds your vision. You remember the shock of watching trusted institutions crumble under the weight of scandal, the betrayal you felt when your own community turned a blind eye to injustices you couldn't unsee. You've sat through sermons that offered platitudes rather than solutions, leaving you longing for clear direction. You've tried to anchor yourself in routines, prayer, service, fellowship. Yet the erosion of family bonds, the breakdown of civility in everyday conversation, and the spread of fear-based rhetoric chipped away at your sense of security. Each instance of broken promise, every instance of deception presented as truth, reinforced the feeling that the entire moral fabric of society was unraveling, leaving you to grapple with a relentless ache of concern for a generation drifting without spiritual compass. As this journey of recognition reaches its climax, carry this powerful revelation within. The warning signs of the times are more than ominous headlines. They are an invitation to fulfill your divine mandate. History's patterns repeat, not to condemn, but to inform, guiding chosen ones like you to stand ready. Comment signs if you recognize the prophecy unfolding and are committed to responding with faith-driven action. Your readiness will echo through generations, igniting hearts to rise above the collapse and to usher in the dawn of a new era defined by humility, service, and unwavering trust in the King of Kings. Preparing for Christ's return. You've sensed it in the tremor of your own spirit, the stirring of something vast beyond headlines and social media noise. In the stillness of your heart, you hear a whisper of urgency, a call to readiness that refuses to be silenced by the world's busyness. You've questioned whether you're overreacting or merely feeding into fear, but deep down, you know this stirring is not faint imagination. It's the echo of a promise that Christ's return draws near, and with it comes a culmination of every prophetic warning delivered across centuries. You're not alone in this sacred anticipation. Many chosen ones around the globe feel the same pull, a mixture of excitement, trepidation, and a fierce longing to stand prepared. Tonight, you will discover how to move from passive hope to active readiness, transforming your life into a beacon of light that points the way for others still searching in the shadows. Prophecy, its words breathing fire into your soul. In every warning of 1989, you hear the echo of your own calling, not as distant rhetoric, but as a divine summons demanding action. You felt pride's chains tighten, enmity's walls rise, and humility's gentle hammer break every bond. Now you understand these forces were not random trials, but the very forging of your readiness. Across time, heaven sounded these alarm bells, and today they awaken your generation to a responsibility that transcends comfort and convenience. The time has come to act. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, "I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul." Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you to all supporting members for standing in the gap. Remember, the warning was given, the signs are here, and your choice will echo into eternity. Be ready, for the return is near. Remember, they may stage the finale, but you know the ending. Our King returns in glory, and eternity belongs to those who stay faithful.